I'm sure you've seen this story now. It's circulating around. Politico had it. It has to do with a bunch of vile, racist, anti-Semitic, absolutely atrocious text messages amongst chat groups on, I think, Telegram or Telegraph. What's the name of the message group? Anyway, they're all texting each other, and they're members of Young Republicans at various chapters around the country. And it's, it's getting absolutely condemned all over the place for these. Yeah, these young people should be jailed, for God's sake. They should be banished from our country. They should be stripped of their citizenship. Don't fall into this trap. This entire story is a media construct, and sadly, a couple of people on my side of the equation have fallen into it. We're going to show you the truth and break down this made up fake story right now. All right, first, here's how Politico framed the story. I love Hitler. Leaked messages expose young Republicans' racist chat. Thousands of private messages reveal young GOP leaders joking about gas chambers, slavery, and rape. All right. First of all, let me just say unequivocally that if these people, no matter what their age is and no matter what their political affiliation is, if they truly in their heart believed some of the things, any of the things that were said in these text messages, they got serious problems. They've got a broken moral compass. If they truly believe this and own these ideas in their hearts, that's absolutely, I disavow and I don't want to have anything to do with them. Period. End of discussion. But what if these young people involved in politics, involved in our popular culture, observing the world that we live in right now and where we've come for the last 10 years, from the wokeisms and political correctness and COVID-19 and the pandemic shutdown and the inability to interact with each other. And maybe you've been told your entire life that you're not allowed to say things or think things, otherwise you're going to burn in hell, or at least the political cultural hell of our cancel culture in this country, and you've had enough of all of that garbage. Maybe you've got some friends and you go through a text exchange with them where you try to outrageous each other because you're trying to be funny and you're trying to get attention. What if that's really the case here? And I ask anybody who's watching this program or listening to this program who has young people in their lives and interact with them, especially people of a generation from the age of about 17 to 27 right now who have been impacted by the world we have created for them. I'm sure you've had conversations with them. I'm sure you've witnessed some of their humor, some of their dark and edgy humor, some of their outrageous over-the-top humor, the way they interact with each other, the way they talk to each other. This is exactly what this story is. Again, I want to reiterate, any of these people actually truly do believe, I don't want to have them anything to do with my movement or my politics. But I don't think that's what's going on here. Also, by the way, it is impossible to separate this story from two other major stories that have happened in the last 4 weeks. You want to talk about really horrible, vile text messages? I happen to remember that a elected official, former member of the House of Delegates, and now candidate for Attorney General in Virginia, not some young Republican hanging out with his dudes goofing with text messages. No, I'm talking about Jay Jones, the man who was 3 weeks away now from being elected Attorney General of Virginia, who was not joking around with text messages. And it wasn't with some buddy, it was with a fellow member of the House of Delegates wishing death upon police officers, a fellow member of the House of Delegates, and children, so that he could win a political argument. And he hasn't lost his job. He hasn't been roundly condemned. He hasn't had the governor of New York say this about him.
Some bad apples. These are the future of the Republican Party. This was so vile. It is hard to find the words to put into context that these are people who are part of a political party, one of two major political parties, and they believe in gas chambers and rape and discrimination based on the color of people's skins. These are racist, sexist, disgusting remarks. And I would say this. We have a leader from the Republican Party in this state, the highest ranking individual, who in the backdrop of all this calls our candidate for mayor, one of our candidates for mayor, a jihadist and a terrorist, and then somehow says, oh, what they said, these young Republicans, was wrong. Like, look at what you say yourself. Look at your inflammatory words. And maybe they have an effect on these young people, many of whom you support and have supported you. And you ought to just do a little re-examination of how far this has gone, where this is normalized enough that thousands of texts are uncovered. This is not one person saying they love Hitler. This is a whole lot of people saying things that are so disgusting and so abhorrent that everybody from the president on down should condemn them. And there's got to be consequences. Kick them out of the party. Take away their official roles. Stop using them as campaign advisors. There needs to be consequences. This bullshit has to stop.
Okay, first of all, about Zohran Mamdani, who she just referenced, he literally has constantly said to globalize the intifada. If you don't want to call that jihadi kind of language, okay, that's just your own word choice. But you know who else says globalize the intifada? Jihadis. I mentioned there were two things that happened in the last 4 weeks that kind of put context in this fake, ridiculous, non-story story from Politico, who went out of their way to try to find something to counteract the J. Jones story. The other thing that happened in the last 4 weeks was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And it was brought upon directly because of the assassination fantasy language that Democrats, elected officials, all the way up to the top of their party, all the way down to the grassroots on Facebook, constantly use against Republicans and President Trump. You know what you do with Hitler? If Hitler is in charge of your government, well, if you're a moral, righteous person, you kill Hitler. And they tried to. And they succeeded with Charlie Kirk, one of the most influential political operatives who helped Hitler get elected. And we're now meant to respect people like this and their righteous indignation and their sanctimony and their finger pointing at you. That she said there should be accountability and people should lose their jobs. Okay, put a pin in that thought. We'll get to it in a second. But first, let's look at all the other Democrats who suddenly had something to say about people sending vile, hateful text messages. Chuck Schumer, sickening, revolting, vile, makes you want to throw up. This is the kind of garbage that the worst kind of people say when they think nobody's watching. And where are Republican leaders from Trump on down condemning these comments swiftly and unequivocally? I'm waiting to hear it. Boy, it's almost like they were just waiting for this story to drop so they could all gird themselves and put on their own armor to protect themselves from J. Jones and all of the garbage they've been saying and continue to say about Charlie Kirk and about Republican leaders. Yeah, it's almost like that. Chris Murphy of Connecticut, what a jackass. This is some vile stuff. These aren't teenagers. Many are Republican staffers. At least one works for Trump. Epithets like retarded and N-word appeared more than 251 times combined. Yeah, well, you know what? That sounds like the Congressional Black Caucus on open mic, not in text messages. Hakeem Jeffries, of course, jumped in the middle of it. Disgraceful New York Republicans Mike Lawler and Lee Stefanik had been palling around with these racist, anti-Semitic, and bigoted young Republicans for years. Their silence exposes what's always been true. The phony outrage was nothing more than performance. Mike Lawler, God bless him, responded to Sombrero Face. You're a complete and total fraud, Hakeem. I denounced their racist, anti-Semitic comments and called for their resignations. You won't condemn Mamdani's fundraising for UNRWA, which helped kill Jews on October 7th, or J. Jones, who fantasized about his killing his opponents and children. And that's 100% right. They keep saying, I didn't hear any Republicans condemning. No, actually, you heard condemnation across the board. And you heard people say, yeah, you know what? If they really believe this crap, they should be fired. They should lose their jobs. And if they were reckless enough to joke around about these things in text messages that could hurt people politically, well, if they're a part of a political entity and they hurt people politically, even if they're joking around, yeah, maybe they should have consequences for that. That's what most Republicans yesterday did say. But JD Vance, and he's been around the block a bit. And by the way, he's been in those rooms with Joe Rogan and Theo Vaughn and other young people who do try to outrageous each other almost as a game. None of it is serious, and nobody takes it seriously. And JD Vance put it in proper perspective. First, he tweeted out a picture of Jay Jones's murderous tweets. By that, you go look at all of these text messages. You don't find things as directly threatening as what Jay Jones sent to a colleague about his colleague. And JD Vance says this is far worse than anything said in a college group chat. And the guy who said it could become the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join the pearl clutching when powerful people call for political violence. Thank you. I mean, honestly, what has graver impact? What actually makes a bigger difference in people's lives? Here's the problem. They have seen Abigail Spanberger spiraling in Virginia. They already had the drapes and carpet picked out for the governor's mansion for Governor Abigail Spanberger months ago, and now she's in the fight for her political life, and her pathetic lack of political skills is being so exposed that they are grasping at straws. They picked up the bat phone and they said, Politico, do something. We need help. And so Politico did whatever they could. In the immortal words of my mentor, Andrew Breitbart, who was inundated with the kind of critiques and attack that we are seeing right now in American politics on a daily basis, as Andrew Breitbart would say, at a time like this, apologize for what? We are constantly held to a different standard, not a higher standard, a completely different standard. We have seen how the rules are different for us versus the people who control the power in this country on the political left. Not just the government power, law enforcement at the federal level, at the FBI and the Justice Department, and in the court systems, but also the power in our politics, in our pop culture, in academia, in the music industry, the film industry, in Hollywood, in big tech. We've seen how they treat us and the standard they make us rise to, and the absolute absence of standards for anyone who's on the other side of the political equation from your typical conservative. Apologize for what? JD Vance is not alone. I'm not alone. Andrew Breitbart is not alone. Somebody else like Andrew is reminding us of this beyond the grave. Charlie Kirk got it. He understood. As he said on Twitter, the left has never played by our rules. Only we play by our rules. Our rules are what keeps our side from winning. We either want to win or we will lose under some delusion that the rules mean anything. You may not like that. You may think that, oh, we'll never come back from this brink. Oh, if we continue with this madness, if we continue with that kind of posture against our political opponents, our country will never unify. You may be right. But here's the thing. There's a reason why the statue of justice holds scales, because it's supposed to be equal. And justice is supposed to be meted out equally, no matter what. There's also a reason why that statue is blind. That statue doesn't care what you look like or how you vote, because justice is supposed to be justice. Does anyone in this country think that those are the rules we've been playing by? Of course not. And so how do we tip those scales back and make them balanced? How do we put that blindfold back on? Well, the only way is for those who have been inflicting this fake version of justice on us for decades with no apologies and no mercy and no grace. They need to understand what it's like. Until they call the truce, it can never change. And by the way, I know everyone's like, oh, these aren't teenagers. These are yeah, okay. These are young Republicans. It means they're in college or they're just out of college. And I don't know if you know a lot of people who are, 19, 20, 21, up to 25, 26 years old. They might not be like you or I were when we were that age, okay? They've been through a very different America. They've been through Obama's America. They've been through the Trump and the Russian collusion and the fake news about Trump being Hitler and a stolen election kind of America. They were also through the cancel culture and social media America. They were also through the COVID-19 pandemic America, where they were not allowed during their formative years to actually normally interact with people in the same social way that you and I did, okay? So think about that for a second while we pivot our camera a bit. And instead of looking at text messages that people said in a private chat group as young Republicans, let's instead look at what the young Democrats are up to these days, not privately, not in a chat room, but right out there on the streets, out in the open. Here's how young Democrats reacted upon the death of Charlie Kirk.
Charlie Kirk just got shot in the neck. Hey, ooh, ha, ooh.
He had it coming. He only had himself to blame.
Charlie Kirk got shot and he's dead. Finally. Thank you. Can we keep this up?
Charlie Kirk was a Nazi. He was a Nazi. And you know what kind of Nazi is the best Nazi? A dead one. Thank God that stain of a person is no longer in this world. Bad people should not be in this world.
Shot right in the voice box. I might be 1% less atheist today.
I don't care that he was a person. He wasn't to me. He was a Nazi. I think he's better off gone. So be it.
This is so bad. Shut the up.
Thoughts and prayers. Rest in smoke, Charlie Kirk.
Popped for talking outside of his neck.
Whoop-de-doo!
Eye for an eye. I think the only thing that went wrong that day was that Trump wasn't standing behind him getting a secondhand bullet.
This is poetic. My thoughts go out to that pew pew having to look this mother in the face. My deepest condolences.
I literally could not give a they can get a stepfather.
Boom. Like, gone. Why do y'all keep aiming for the wrong? Aim higher.
Charlie Kirk. You support Charlie Kirk being killed?
Yes, I do.
You support Charlie Kirk shooter?
He does all favor. I would have killed him myself.
He was such a good person. Why did he get shot? What do you think we're gonna do? Honestly, y'all, he had it coming.
Charlie Kirk was a big advocate for the Second Amendment. It worked out well for him.
I don't give a about Kirk's death. He had 2 kids. His kids. Shut your about that white boy kid. They probably autistic anyway. Your about that white boy kid.
He was shot in the middle of saying something transphobic about trans people, and yet you want to have sympathy for him. You're losing your humanity by allowing fascists to define your sympathy for you.
You know, sometimes revenge is a dish best served cold. He died in a world that he wanted. We read slavery, we watch Roots. There are so many different eras of American history and in America where worse things have happened to people.
Why are you mourning the death of a literal Nazi? Lost a loving husband and a devoted father.
Now that Charlie Kirk's gone, Miss Candace Owens, I suggest you stay home with your white baby and your white husband and shut the up and stay out of the limelight. Okay? Stay safe out there, girl. You gonna need it.
I think you get the point. Listen, I'm sorry that y'all had to see that. I'm sorry y'all had to hear that. But we need to give some foundation and context to this story so you understand why I continue to repeat the words of Andrew Breitbart. He said them just the day that he died. Apologize for what? You just saw that. What were those people joking? Were those people hiding behind a private group text and just saying things knowing that it wouldn't be exposed by a Politico reporter? Because Politico reporters never go looking for vile things that Democrats say in a private chat room. No. Think about the world that we live in, where those people that you just saw feel that emboldened. They feel so confident that they can say the things they just said hours after the murder of Charlie Kirk and know that there will be no repercussions, that they won't get canceled, that they won't lose their jobs, that they will not be condemned. They know that they're safe and they can say whatever they want. Time to put those scales back in balance. Time to put that blindfold back on the statue, you see? That's my point. Do not fall into this trap that they are setting for you. Stop right now. Oh, and one other thing. I asked you to put a pin in Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York's statement there about how there's no accountability and there's no condemnation and people should lose their jobs. Well, it's funny she should say that because unlike the Democrat Party, unlike every Democrat elected official who has endorsed Jay Jones for Attorney General of Virginia, unlike every elected official and every candidate running for office right now who refuse to condemn Jay Jones and call for him to exit the race and show some dignity and honor and not put himself on the ballot to be the Attorney General of Virginia, unlike every single Democrat who are standing by Jay Jones after his vile, murderous, violent text messages about a colleague, unlike Democrats, we actually are showing some accountability. Young Republicans, board of directors, who these people are affiliated directly with, who sent these text messages in this chat group. Here's their statement. We're appalled by the violent and inexcusable language revealed in the Politico article published today. Such behavior is disgraceful, unbecoming of any Republican, and stands in direct opposition to the values our movement represents. Those involved must immediately resign from all positions within their state and local young Republican organizations. We must hold ourselves to the highest standards of integrity, respect, and professionalism. They're calling for their resignation. They're demanding accountability, and yet you've got these Democrats from Chuck Schumer to Hakeem Jeffries to Chris Murphy to Kathy Hochul. It's like, where's the accountability? Where's that? It's there because the truth doesn't matter. This isn't about the accountability. This isn't about these young people losing their jobs. This is about playing political games in the media to try to protect themselves from who they are and what they've done. All right? The accountability is all over the place. Here's young Republicans of Texas. We're appalled by these violent, hateful text messages. Jay Jones must drop out of the AG race immediately. Well, I mean, they made their point, and I think I did too. Why is this important? Well, it's important partly because of the Jay Jones story, partly because of everything that I just laid out for you about how we got here in the scales of justice and the different standards. But it's also because even after the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, twice, even after the successful assassination of Charlie Kirk, even after the hateful, murderous rhetoric of Jay Jones, dehumanizing Republicans, and acting like they deserve to have a bullet in the head, even after all of that and all of the fake pretend concern over what Jay Jones said, even though they refuse to actually demand his resignation, after all of that, they're still at it and they just won't stop. Here's CNN last night reacting to the Politico fake story.
But Keith, is that what you're saying? Is that this is representative of the Republican Party?
I am saying exactly that. The Republican Party in the past 10 years has moved down the road of racism. So it's not surprising that you see the open embrace of Nazism, of anti-Semitism, of homophobia, of transphobia, of sexism, of attacks on immigrants and xenophobia. Because the Republican Party under Donald Trump, the Republican Party under Donald Trump has doubled down on its racism.
All right.
There you go. That was last night on CNN. gone unabated. They're proud of it. This is CNN. Yes, this is the Republican Party. This is who they are. Those text messages, that's who they are. And if you're a viewer and you believe that garbage, well, probably might get motivated to do something about it. In fact, it got even worse. You flip over on MSNBC. What are they saying over there about Trump and Republicans? Again, just a year after the assassination attempt on his life, just a month after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. What are they saying about us?
How obsessed is Trump with Chicago, in part because it is President Obama's hometown?
Oh, I think massively. I mean, look, but you also can't overstate how much his lieutenants like Stephen Miller and others are aware of Chicago's history. Now Donald Trump isn't a student of history, let alone has ever even cracked a history book open. But the people around him know that Chicago's got a history of protest. Chicago has a history of riots, and they're looking for cities where they can create unrest. Now, Nicole, I'll go all the way back to when I first came forward after the Trump administration, the first Trump administration, and unmasked myself. One of the first things I talked about is Donald Trump's reference to this thing he called at the time his magical authorities. That's how he described the Insurrection Act. Why did I choose that to be the first thing I sounded the alarm about to the public when I came forward? Because it was the thing I was most worried about him doing. That's what he described the Insurrection Act as, his magical authorities. He wanted us to use it at the border. We said it wasn't legal. He wanted people like Mark Esper to use it against protesters in 2020. They told him it wasn't legal. Now he's got those people out of his administration. Now he's got people who are willing to let him use it without cause in major cities. And this is why, Nicole, I think people like JB Pritzker and Governor Newsom need to call an urgent meeting of America's governors. Maybe it's just the blue state governors, but this is it. This is the moment all the governors need to get together and say, we should talk about mutual aid pacts and joint boycotts and ways to get leverage over the federal government, because the Trump administration is coming for them. This is an urgent moment of national.
This is Civil War talk. Donald Trump is going to illegally invoke the Insurrection Act and invade American states and cities, and the governors need to fight back. This is an urgent moment. This is Civil War talk. This is the kind of talk that over on MSNBC is accepted as intellectual analysis and really important perspective on what's really going on in our country, and anyone else watching it sees it for what it is. It's a call for assassination. I say that because it's worked in the past. And they'll take a day or a day and a half off from it, and then they'll get right back to it. This is what they're doing, and this is who they are. And so forgive me for not losing sleep over young Republicans exchanging text messages in a group chat and Politico exposing it. Forgive me if I don't bend a knee and kiss the ring of Kathy Hochul and Hakeem Jeffries and Zohran Mamdani, because I'm not properly upset about these text messages, this chat group. Forgive me if I continue to say appropriately. Apologize for what?